Hey guys, so for this week, we're going to learn how to, do some more factoring. Of course, we've been doing it this whole time. But last week we did factoring when a was less than 1. Now, let me remind you, the a is the number in front of the x squared. So for this problem, the number in front of the x squared is -4. Last week we did it when a was greater than 1, so positive numbers, anything positive. But now anything less than 1 besides 0 is negative numbers. So we're going to be factoring when the a value is negative. So you're never allowed to have a negative in front of the x squared. You don't want that. So you've got to get rid of that negative. And to do that, you're going to follow these steps. It's the same as last week, but we added in this first step. It's extra. The first step is to factor out the negative, which is technically the GCF. So you always want to see if you have a GCF. The GCF of -4, -8, and 5, there really isn't one. 5 is prime, doesn't go into anything. So it's technically a 1. But since it's a negative in front, we want to take out that negative. So you can view the GCF as a -1 and factor it out. And remember, when you're factoring out the GCF, you're technically dividing. -4x squared divided by -1 becomes positive 4x squared. This -8x, the -8 divided by the -1, two negatives make positive 8x. And then this is positive 5. And when you divide by -1, it becomes -5. So that's one way to take out the negative. Now my new a value is just 4 for the middle problem. But you could also just do it by taking out a negative. I do it this way. I don't put a 1. You don't have to. If I factor out a negative from -4x, take out that negative, I'm left with just positive. If I take out the negative from -8, two negatives give me positive. And if I take out the negative from positive and negative give me -5. So you can do it that way. See, it matches here. These match. And still, the a value is 4 here. So now we turned that a value into a positive number, so we can go follow the steps just from the steps I gave you from last week, as if it was a is positive. So you first want to factor out the negative. Then, so we did that. Step 1, factor out the negative, or a negative GCF. The GCF could be bigger than 1. It could be 2 if 2 goes into all of them or something. So you take out the negative GCF, or just the negative, and then you're going to go and factor the middle guy. We're going to ignore this negative. He's going to be part of our answer in the front at the end. We're going to just work on this, a side note here. We're going to factor this. I'm going to put it, I'll just put it here. So we're going to factor this. And so since a is not 1, we need to multiply the a times the c. So we need to take this a value and multiply by it here. We're going to get rid of this a. So that's just x squared. We're going to bring down the plus 8x. And then it's 4 times -5, which is -20. Remember, this is what we did last week. So if you haven't watched the videos from last week, go watch those first. So you multiply a times c, the a times the c value. Remember, a is in front of the x squared, b is in front of the x, and c is the number by itself, which is him. And then, so we did that, and now you factor the new guy. So we're going to just work with him. We're going to just factor the blue part. And to factor that, remember, the two terms that go here have to multiply to give me x squared. So what two things multiply to give me x squared? X times x. And then the two terms here have to multiply to give me 20, -20, but add to give me 8. So remember, always start with what multiplies to give you the number. What multiplies to give me 20? Well, 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 3 doesn't go into 20, 4 times 5. These are the factors that multiply to give me 20, but it's -20, which means that one of these has to be negative. And you have to figure that out so that when you add the numbers, they add to give me 8. So let's just talk about this. And since we're adding a negative, it could be like subtracting. 1 plus 20 is 21. That's not 8. 20 minus 1 is 19. That's not 8. So we know this doesn't work. 2 plus 10 is 12. But 10 minus 2 is 8. So this is the guy we're probably going to use. And just check here real quick. 4 plus 5 is 9. 5 minus 4 is 1. So it's not going to be this guy either. So it's going to be 2 and 10. You just need to figure out if it's 2 plus -10. Does the negative go on the 10 or does the negative go on the 2? Negative 2 plus 10. Remember, they have to add, which is what we're doing, to give you 8. 2 plus negative 10 is negative 8. We don't want negative 8. We want positive 8. And then negative 2 plus 10 is 8. So this is the guy we're going to use, negative 2 and 10. And negative 2, just let me show you, negative 2 times 10 is negative 20, which is what we want. So the two terms that go here are negative 2 and positive 10. Because these multiply to give me negative 20 and they add to give me 8. So now this factors to give me that, but remember, this is from last week. We had to multiply the a value to the c. So now we need to go and divide the second terms by the a value. Since we multiplied the a value in, we need to now go divide it out. So my a value here is not negative 4. We're working with the blue part. We factored out the negative. So now my new a value is positive 4. So don't get confused with that. We're going to go and divide by this a value. So we're going to divide him by 4, divide him by 4. And when you're reducing this, you got to reduce the fraction. And if it doesn't reduce, then you drag him up here. But let's reduce this. This can be turned into x minus 2 divided by 4 can be reduced. So I'll do it here. 2 divided by 4. If you reduce the fraction, it's like taking out a GCF. What is the GCF of 2 and 4? What goes into both of them? 2. So you can divide the top by 2 and get 2 divided by 2 is 1. But whatever you do the top, you have to do the bottom. It's only fair. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. So this reduces this fraction 2/4, turns into 1/2. And then this x, 10 divided by 4 is a decimal. You can't do it, but you can still reduce this fraction. So let's reduce 10 over 4. What goes into both 10 and 4? What's the GCF there? 4 doesn't go into 10, but 2 does, right? 2, if you divide the top by 2, you get 5. And you have to do it to the bottom. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So this reduces to be 5 over 2. That's, we divided the 2, or the second term, by the a value. We divided everything by a. Now we simplify the fraction, which is what we did. But now, if it's still a fraction, you've got to drag the bottom of the fraction in front of the first term. So let me just use a different color here. I'll use black. We're going to take this 2 and drag it in front. So it's going to be 2x minus 1. And this, we're going to drag this 2 in front. So it'll be 2x plus 5. And so this whole blue part factors, I'm crossing it out, I'm sorry. This factors to give me that. And let me just get rid of this. Hide this. But we took out a negative from the beginning. So you need to remember the negative is in front. And if you want to put negative 1 in front, you can. So this is the final answer. I'm going to just put it up here. The final answer is 2x minus 1 times 2x plus 5. This whole thing is now factored. And that's my answer. So the step this week is that it is different than last week because we're talking about negative numbers and you need to factor out a negative. And when you do that, it changes all the signs and then you factor like normal. Remember, to check your work, you can distribute out. I have no room left, so I'll maybe do it on the next problem. So let's try another one. We're going to factor, again, when a is less than 1. And it's taking forever. Okay, there we go. We're going to factor this problem. Look at our a value is what's in front of the x squared. So what is our a value here? Oh, and it's not an x squared. This time it's a y squared, which is fine. So my a value is negative 2. So we first want to get rid of that negative. And first you want to see if there's a GCF. Is there anything that goes into 2, 5, and 3? And remember, it has to go into all of them. There's nothing except a negative. So we can take out, first step is to factor out that negative. So we're going to take out a negative from the whole problem, factor it out. Remember, we're still turning into a multiplication problem, so you need those parentheses. So if you take out a negative from negative 2y squared, the negative and the negative make positive 2y squared. If you take out the negative from the negative, we get positive 5y. And if you factor out the negative from -3, the two negatives give you positive 3. That's the first step. Factor out the negative. If you want to put -1 to help you, you can. Now we're going to go factor this. So to factor this, remember our a value, our new a value, so it's no longer -2 for this problem, our a value is 2 now. So now we're going to follow the steps as if we were to factor this. Since a is bigger than 1, we need to multiply the a times the c. That's what this step is, multiply a times c. So it's going to be, we're going to get rid of that a, so it's going to be y squared plus 5y. And we're multiplying 2 times 3, which is 6. So step 2 is done. Multiply the a times the c. Don't worry about that negative. We factored him out. We'll bring him down at the end. And now we need to factor the new expression. So I'll just use blue. We turned him into this. Now we're factoring. Remember, first two terms have to multiply to give me y squared. What multiplies to give me y squared? Y times y. This time it's not x. So if you type in x or get something wrong, check your variables. Make sure you're using the right variable. Y times y is y squared. Two terms that go here have to multiply to give me 6, but add to give me 5. So what multiplies to give me 6? 1 times 6, 2 times 3. That's it. And it's not negative anymore because we factored out the negatives. So this is pretty easy. 1 plus 6 is 7, which is not what we want. We want 5. But 2 plus 3 is 5. So these are the terms. These are the terms we're going to use. We're going to use positive 2 and positive 3. So this factors to give me this. But remember, we multiplied the a to the c. So now we need to go divide by that a value. And our a value is 2. So we're going to go divide by 2, divide by 2. So we factored the new expression and got the blue part. And now we're dividing by the second terms by the a value, which is 2. Now we simplify the fraction. So if I do this, this turns into y plus, we can simplify. 2 divided by 2 turns into 1. And there's nothing left, so we don't have to drag anything. And if we simplify this, 3 divided by 2, that doesn't work. And there's nothing to reduce. So if you can't simplify the fraction, you drag the bottom of the fraction in front of the first term. So we're going to drag the 2 in front of the y. And it'll become 2y plus 3. So this whole underlined, well, in blue, now red, factors to give me this. But remember, we factored out a negative. So we need to remember to bring that negative down. And this is my final answer. Now remember, to check it, you distribute out. And I'm going to do that real quick. We've got, you do not distribute the negative in first. Well, I'm not going to do it, at least, because I want to show you. Y times 2y is 2y squared. Y times 3 is 3y. 1 times 2y is 2y. And 1 times 3 is 3. And then you can combine the middle terms to give me 2y squared. 3y plus 2y is 5y plus 3. And then, so this whole thing, all of these came from distributing that, but then there's a negative. You can go and distribute the negative in. And when you distribute the negative, it changes the sign, becomes negative 2y squared. Negative times positive is negative 5y. And negative times 3 is negative 3. And this does match the original problem.